Hey guys, Chris from AxeFX Tutorials here. We just woke up and saw that Firmware 19.05 was released for the AxeFX 3, and it has a huge feature that people have been requesting for a long time. Now, in 2012, Scenes came out on the AxeFX 2, and it was intended to allow us to change channels and block on-off all at the same time with one foot switch press. Before this, we had to have multiple buttons to turn on chorus and delay and change the amp from X to Y on the AxeFX 2, things like that. But with Scenes, we could do it with one foot switch. Of course, when Scenes came out, a pretty quick request was to have blocks ignore scenes, so you could have some blocks change while some blocks stay the same. For example, an amp block might stay the same while your scenes change all of your other effect type blocks. Well, in Firmware 19.05, we do have that feature on the AxeFX 3. I'm just going to show a brief overview of what it looks like. And right now it's just on hardware. At the time of recording this video, we don't have an updated Axe Edit. So this new parameter is going to appear in different places on different block types. And I haven't had time to look at everything yet. But for example, on the amp block, if we go to the edit screen here, it's going to be on the bottom of the advanced page all the way over here. There it is, scene ignore off or on. And in the pitch block, for example, if we go to that edit, it happens to be on the mix page all the way over here. So it's going to be in different places on the hardware, so just keep an eye out for it. For this new scene ignore parameter, we have two options. If we set it to off, which is the default, this is how it's always behaved. Every block is affected by scene changes. You had to have set it up, saved it a certain way, and then changing scenes will either change channels or turn the block on and off. The new option is setting this scene ignore parameter to on. Now this is a per channel setting. So if you want your entire amp block, all 4 channels, to ignore any scene changes, you need to turn it on for all channels and save. But when you turn it on, the scene ignore will instruct the block to ignore any scene changes. So that includes channel changes and on and off. So back on the hardware, I'm in my amp block and we're on channel A. And right now scene ignore is turned off. If I were to turn this on, now channel A in my amp block, if it's selected, won't respond to any scene changes. I'll show you this in just a sec. But we have our quick channel up and down selects right here with the A and B buttons. If I go to channel B in my amp block, we'll see that it's set to off. Channel C and D are also set off right now. So remember, this is per channel, so just make sure you turn it on for all the channels you actually want. We'll go back to edit here, and remember, we don't have the parameter setting just yet, but I can show you what it does. So first I'm going to turn it back off and show you what my preset normally does. Scene 1 and 2 are amp channel A. So we'll stay in the amp block and check this out. So 1 and 2 are channel A. And if I go to 3, it changes to channel C. 4 is channel C, 5 is B, and 6 is D. Okay, we're going to go back to scene 1. I'm going to turn scene ignore back on just channel A. So now it's on. I did that on hardware. And remember, scene 1 and 2 are channel A in my amp block. I'll go to scene 3, which should be channel C. I've changed to scene 3, and my amp block is still on channel A. 5 should be B, it didn't change. 6 should be D, it didn't change. So if you've ever wanted to arrange your preset where your amp sort of stays the same like a typical real amp would, and you're using your pedal board to change all your effects and affect the amp tone, like with drives or something like that, now you can do something like that, where when you design your preset, you know your amp isn't going to change. So you could turn scene ignore on for this channel. Let's say we only use 1. And then all my other blocks can be changing on, off, all the channels to give different types of sounds, where my amp block will stay the same. Now remember, this setting is per channel. So if you want it on all channels, you're going to have to set that in each one. However, because it's per channel, we can still allow scenes to change our amp block if we want, just by using other channels where we haven't turned the scene ignore on. Now we'll get into a little more depth in our live streams and maybe some other videos about this, but you're probably going to need a foot switch to change channels on your FC or your MIDI controller, whatever, so you can get to those other channels. Because right now, if I'm on channel A with scene ignore and I'm changing scenes, I can't get to any other amp channel, automatically, if you will, with the scene changing it. So let's go to scene 3. This is normally channel C in my amp block, but since we have scene ignore on, it didn't do it. Let's say I have on my FC channel switch to go to C. So now I'm on C. From here, Channel C doesn't have scene ignore on. So I can go to scene 5, which will change it to amp B, scene 6, which will change it to amp D, back to scene 3, which will change it to C again. However, if I go to scene 1, it goes to amp channel A, and because ignore is on from here, I'm kind of stuck, if you will. It's not changing channels. So we can use this to our advantage. Again, I'll get into more detail in our live streams and once I've had a little more than 5 minutes to check this out. But a really cool feature, once we come back to scene 1 and we're locked on channel A, now I can use all these other scenes with their various effects, if I set it up to do something, then use a channel switch on my foot controller or on the front panel or something to get back to the scenes controlling my amp channels and things like that. And I'm right back to where I was. So yeah, a really big change here. Firmware 19.05 for the AxeFX 3 full release. There's no betas right now. It just came out this morning. So go check it out. Just remember, it's on the front panel only right now at the time of this recording. And it's in various places in different blocks. It could be a line item like this, or it could be a switch type item like in the pitch block that I showed earlier. Anyway, have fun with this. Let me know how you're using this feature, if you've wanted it, if you don't want it, if you're never going to use it, those sorts of things. But it really does add another layer to programming our presets and controlling exactly what we want on the AxeFX 3.